welcome to another edition of the Best Fleets podcast. Is this going to be the greatest episode we've ever recorded? Possibly. I don't know. I've come through a few others recently. They might be tough to beat, but we happen to have a big winner here with us. And representing Challenger, Steve Newton, Senior Director of Safety and Driver Development, and Jeff Topping, Chief People Officer. And first, if I could say right off the bat, congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
The big win at the Best Fleets Conference, the best overall large carrier. Was it completely unexpected?
Yeah, it was actually because Jane asked me that same question, and with the economy the way it's been this year, I wasn't sure what the surveys were going to look like, and so yeah, I was very shocked because I wasn't expecting to be the overall winner by any means.
So one of the things we're going to talk about here is all the different things that you're doing. So your survey results were, of course, great, but a bunch of the programs you have in place, they hit on what I would say are three different areas. And I'm not going to explain them right away, but I'm going to wrap it up this way at the end. And I think it really exemplifies why you folks have been so successful. But let me tuck into a couple things here. I want to talk a little bit about your training program, the training school, and new students. Right? Have you been doing that for a long time?
Yeah, we started. We've been doing the finishing program for over a decade, but from the school side of things, we started with the DCP program, which you may have heard of. It's where you self-certify or self-train drivers, and so we started off with that, and then that kind of progressed into the school as we were training people, and of course we were footing the bill for all of it. It's how can we generate some revenue by opening the school and getting second career funding to fund some of the students. So we've been in the school business now for 5 years, I think, Jeff, but it was 2018, I think, is when we kind of started into the school. So from the finishing side, we've been very good at that, and now we're progressing into the school world, which has been very successful too.
So here's my industry question. There are lots of people that say, these new kids that are coming in, right? It's not like it was in the old days, right? They're not as skilled, they're not as this, not as that. I don't know if that's true, but it wouldn't surprise me to hear that their approach to the job and to being taught is different from, say, students you might have seen 5, 6, 10 years ago. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I think that what I've seen, the biggest difference is their acceptance of technology, and that can be a good thing and a bad thing. But the older school back in the old days, teaching people, they already knew everything, and technology wasn't something that they were interested in. And I find the new kids coming in, they're a lot more open to the conversations, and then when you start introducing a little bit of technology like the simulator or any other of those types of technology, the technology on the truck, they're a lot more accepting to it because they've grown up with technology. So for them it's nothing.
Yeah Agreed, Jeff.
Yeah, totally. And I think Steve's team does a really good job in the school and the training program of adapting to the new technology in the trucks or in the maintenance area or whatever that might be. And again, people today are more, even if they're not young, even if they're, in a second career phase in their life, people are more adapt to technology than they used to be. Three of us sitting talking on a screen is not something that would have happened in the past, right? We would have done this over a phone or we would have met in person. So I think everybody's acceptance of technology is different. And I think we all know that schools, any trucking driving school, and there's a lot of great ones out there, can only prepare people so much. And it can prepare you to pass your license, and it can prepare you to have the foundation to do the job. But the finishing programs are where there's many carriers that have a finishing program. Mm-hmm. But the finishing programs we've focused really hard on, and again, Steve and his team do a great job of constantly evolving that, is really what takes that to the next level and helps you be ready to do the job, not just ready to drive the truck. And those are two different things, in my opinion, driving the truck and doing the job.
Yeah, and to add to that a little bit before we move on, a lot of my trainers are obviously old school, and it took us the longest time to accept a GPS in the training platform, and so we were very you gotta learn how to read a map, which is important. Don't get me wrong. And the more the younger kids come in, and the more the younger kids they'd never even seen a map book before, and so trying to convince the trainers that we can still do an effective job. They're going to use the GPS in the real world. Let's teach them how to do it safely and how to do it properly. And, something as simple as that, we had to retrain the trainers because they're the old school, guys coming out of the truck. So, yeah.
And I want to move in on that in a second. There is, related to maps, there's sort of an ongoing push and pull around logbooks. ELDs, of course, doing all that stuff. But a lot of people are saying, look, ELDs can go down, and if you get an inspection, they're going to want to see that you can actually fill out a paper log. Is that, do you agree with that? And does that track over to maps as well, or is mapping a different kind of thing? And just like, if
Kind of the same idea, like, it's going back to the manual processes that we've kind of grown into the computer world, or and yeah, I mean, we still have to teach people how to do that. We still, especially in the school side of things, we teach people how to, fill out logbooks every day of their week, even though they're still being tracked on an ELD, so that they know kind of how, coming out of school, they know how to do both. And yeah, I don't think the ELDs don't go down as often as what people think, but you always have to have that backup just in case, so that transferable skill.
yeah, absolutely right. Yeah.
And I think it's kind of the fundamentals of it too, right? I mean, I can remember, when am I ever going to need to learn how to do this math? I want to work in the trucking industry. Well, I want to be a truck driver. So,
Yeah.
but if you don't know how to do the theory behind the math, a calculator really doesn't help you, right? I mean, some people would say that the computer or the calculator does the work for you. Well, you still have to know, if you want to add, if you want to multiply, it's the same thing. It's the foundation of the tool will help you, but you got to know why you're doing that and the kind of steps to do it.
Okay. So like, there's the procedural knowledge, then there's the conceptual knowledge, and if you're missing the concepts, then
Yeah.
look at the rest of it. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to ask a side question, just about the simulator, because I never really get to sit down and talk to people about this, but I'm interested. Obviously, it doesn't give you a feeling of actually being in the truck, but it does get you a whole bunch of things. And so, do you find that it is more useful for someone who is just learning how to drive, or are there things in there for someone who maybe has been driving for years but needs to fine tune something, or both?
I'll jump in first, and then I'll let Jeff tell the story because I can
Oh,
see
okay,
it.
I figured that's where you were going.
I can see it in his face, but I'm going to say it's both because yeah, the simulator drives muscle memory. So yeah, it's not the same as being out on the road driving, but it gives you that concept of, I'm steering the wheel. So it kind of builds that muscle memory as you're driving. So from a technical side, or if I'm learning a new skill and I'm trying to figure out how to back up, I can learn which way to turn the steering wheel to make the trailer go the right way, so that when I go outside, it speeds things up a little bit. So there's that technical side. And then there's kind of that, advanced driving skills where you can do things in a simulator that you're not allowed to do on a road. So, if I can wipe out the truck and then rebring it, or, and teach people how to bring it back, obviously it's to the extreme, but you can teach people how to better control the vehicle. So there is a lot of advanced techniques as well. All right, Jeff, go.
Okay, so Rick, was not as heavy of a believer in simulators as Steve was, and Steve talked me into doing a demo on a simulator when we were at the TCA one year. And the demo was, if something's coming at you, steer to where the object is coming from instead of steer away from it,
Yeah.
which is your automatic reaction to steer away from it, right? So you were driving this simulator and you were on town streets and people were jumping out and cars were coming out, and then it moved you out onto a highway and things were happening, animals coming out, and it trained you to steer where it came from rather than go the opposite way. we got back from that convention and I left to drive to Florida with my wife and kids. And we were heading down I-95 just in Florida, just south of the Georgia-Florida line. And a pickup truck was in front of us, and the liner in the pickup bed came out and flew up into the air. And I guarantee, had I not spent that time in the simulator, I would have turned this way and that pickup truck bed liner would have hit us. I turned to where it was coming from to get away from it instead. My wife was very impressed, actually, and I didn't have the heart to tell her I only learned that a few days ago. But I can guarantee, as sure as I'm sitting here right now, I would have hit that flying object if I hadn't have spent that time in the simulator. So Steve still grins. Look at him; he's grinning right now. That totally changed my opinion on muscle memory and what you can learn from a simulator, because I would have hit that object.
Yeah, that's amazing. So in terms of muscle memory, I guess it's like playing catch before you actually play a game of baseball, right?
Yep,
Just get
absolutely.
that rhythm down, and then you go.
You learn the fundamentals. You learn, you have a visual. You can talk about defensive driving all day long in a classroom. When you're sitting behind the wheel, you're seeing things come at you. You have to react. That's just driving that muscle memory. It's teaching you how to do something. And no, it's not real world. And if you go into a simulator assuming it's going to be real world, well, you're going to be very disappointed. It's not about being real world. It's about teaching things that you just can't teach on the road.
Right. I love it. I love it. All right. I wanted to, your mentorship program, because we're talking a little bit of training. We're going to sort of dovetail onto that. Can you tell me a little bit about your mentorship program?
Yeah, so two-prong. I'll talk about the driver side first. So we have all of our trainers are mentors, and then we have some extras that are some mentors as well. So they're on-road mentors. So these mentors are there basically 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we give out cards inside of orientation. It's got a bunch of names on it, tells you what shift they work. And then that way, if you have a question at customs at 3 o'clock in the morning, this trainer works midnights and he's available. And we pay for their cell phone bills and all of that so that they can, they make these phone calls in the US or wherever. And so now I always have somebody to call if I have a question. I don't know where a customer is. I don't know how to clear a bond. I don't know how to do whatever. And there's tons of people to make those phone calls, and you can call. So pretty much all of our on-road trainers are mentors, and many of the in-yard trainers are mentors as well. I even have one of my safety supervisors still a mentor from when he was an on-road trainer, and so he still gets phone calls in the during the day or whatever from the mentorship cards that we continue to hand out. So,
Yeah.
and then the second, sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
On top of that, I think it's just been a great program to help other drivers learn more about the industry, but also connect with some of the more experienced drivers, and a chance for them to ask a question without feeling ashamed about it. They might not want to phone in and ask safety. They might not want to phone in and ask the driver managers or somebody in operations. And they can look on the list and see that this is a BC highway driver or a Quebec local driver. And I have a question about something specific to that. So it takes away the fear, it takes away the anxiety, and let's face it, it helps develop our people. It helps develop the people that are the mentors, right? They get to give back, and they take a lot of pride in it. There's certain ones of them come and tell you almost every time they get a call, and sometimes they don't get a call for a month, and the other times they get 5 a day, right? So
yeah.
It's a pretty.
It kind of stemmed out of it, and I'd love to take credit for creating this program, but we didn't. It created itself, and so obviously we have a strong finishing program, and we bring in a lot of entry-level drivers, and these entry-level drivers will ride with a city driver for, or not drive, but work with the city trainer for a couple weeks. Then they work with a highway trainer for a few weeks, and they were building these bonds with these trainers, and these trainers became their mentors way after the fact. And so we just took what was already existing and built a program around it and said, hey, we'll start paying for your cell phones and, this and that, so that, now you got some credit for actually doing it, and handed out some cards. So, I'd love to say that we created it, but the culture created it. So
that was my next question. How did this come about? And I think connected to that, we at Best Fleets will often tell newer companies that are newer to the program who don't have sort of these robust programs, you know, listen to these podcasts, go to the education session, talk to the winners, find out what they're doing. And so so you can imagine there's a new company watching this, hearing about this, you know, pretty robust mentoring program and wondering, how do I get started? What if my culture doesn't automatically spawn that? How do I get started? I don't know what the answer is, but maybe you've got some
I
ideas.
honestly think that's pretty simple. If you want, I mean, pick a couple of long-term, or maybe they're not long-term, maybe they're short-term people who really fit the mold of what you're trying to build your culture into, and that are willing to give back of their experience and even share their mistakes. Hey, you know, Jeff, let me tell you about a mistake I made so you don't have to make it, kind of thing, right? And that people want to help other people. That's a human thing we all have. So it doesn't take much. It takes a couple of business cards with some phone numbers on it, and you pass them out to every new hire, or and you say, here's Rick. He's been with us for 15 years. Even if you were a 10 truck fleet, here's Rick. He's been with us 15 years. He's been to every one of our customers. He knows his way around the yard. When you're here in the yard and you can't find something on Sunday afternoon, Rick would know where it is, kind of thing, right? Like,
This sounds
I'm
like
gonna
the
say that I'm gonna say that it's probably happening anyways. But I
yeah,
worked for a few companies in my time, and all you got to go do is hang out in the driver's room for a few minutes, and you're gonna know it's already happening in probably every organization. Um, Somebody is in the driver's room giving advice to somebody else, um, good or bad, and so harness that, pick out the ones that want to be the mentors, and drive that narrative. Be able to get them to talk the way you want them to talk, and that way, they're spreading the message anyways. So, yeah, get a hold of it and make it the right message.
love it. I love it.
and
All
you
right.
also get
Yeah.
you also get to hear the pinch points, right? You get to hear, hey, every new driver, this hasn't happened, but we'll just pretend it did. Every new driver, whether they're new to the industry or new to the company, doesn't know anything about how to get in and out of the yard in Quebec. It's got a different kind of gate, and hey, Jeff and Steve, of the last 20 people we've hired, 18 of them have called saying nobody told me how to get into that gate or what the code was, or hey, we missed that in training, or we changed our training program and it got dropped, or inadvertently. That's just an example. It could be how to fill out where to drop your trip jackets. It could be anything, but you'll find out those pinch points pretty quick too.
Right.
Absolutely.
So I think what we've captured here is one of the three buckets that I think you folks do well. And I'll declare them now. The three buckets I think are in, up, and out. So in is how well you are training and attending to what's going on with the people who already work for you, particularly the drivers. And I want to talk a little bit about up, which is namely leadership development, which I think is something that you guys do fairly well. Is that right?
Well, we certainly try. I think we do a good job of it. I think there's always room for improvement in any program, and whether you're the winner of one of these contests, or however you want to word that, you can always learn from everybody else. So
Yeah.
there's people out there that we could learn from, and they can learn from us as well. But so as Steve said, we were always known for a company that put a lot of effort and time and resources into training our drivers. And a number of years ago, we started to really work on the culture of the company, and that's when things started to change. And we did a process. We called it Good to Great. We modeled it after the book Good to Great.
Book. Yeah.
And we did discoveries with drivers, with mechanics, with office staff, with everybody. We did one-on-one meetings. We did group meetings at all hours to try and find out what we need to do to improve our culture. And our goal is to be people first, and that means it doesn't mean give everybody everything they want. It means give them the tools, give them the training, and give them the opportunities to succeed in their career. And one of the things that came out loud and clear during that was, you spend all this money, time, and effort on training drivers. You don't do anything for any of us that are not drivers. And we had to take a hard look in the mirror about that. And so that's when we started offering different courses. We started changed to, how reimbursement program is for people that want to take courses to make themselves better in their job or advance in their career. And we started our own leadership program. So it's called the Call, the Challenger Academy of Learning for Leaders, and it's 9 modules. So it's 9 days. We run it once a year. We're on call number 11. So I guess we're 11 years we've been running it now. So there'll be 150 roughly graduates. We put about 15 people each time through it. And it's people that have been identified throughout the organization on the non-driving side that maybe they're going to be set up for a leadership role. Maybe they're just a high potential, high performer in their area, and we want to help them be better in their area. Maybe they don't want to be a manager, a leader, anything, but they want to be the best operations person on the weekend shift. I'll just use that as an example. Why wouldn't we invest in that person and teach them a bit about personal leadership, teach them a bit about team dynamics, teach them about, group leadership, teach them about situational leadership, dealing with difficult conversations, those kind of things. So those 9 modules put together the group of the Call. And when you go see that sessions, there's people from every department. And it's funny to watch when you see them. We always have a graduation where them and their direct leaders there, and they get their diploma, and we have a cake and that kind of stuff, and they get their pictures taken. It's a big deal. Jim, our president and CEO, is there to thank them, and we decorate up the boardroom nice for it. It's a big event. And you see those people from different departments, and later you still see those people talking to each other about different things. You'll see someone from the shop who took the call with someone from IT, and you'll still see them, and they admit to, when they're struggling with a situation, hey, Rick, you took that course with me back 2 years ago, and we remember the team dynamics one. I want to talk about, I'm having this issue, and you'll see them getting their books out from the call or discussing it, and those bonds have really built. It's a pretty interesting dynamic that I don't think was part of our plan. Our plan was to build everyone's, speaking a common language, using the same kind of tools and theories, but they're still talking to each other years later.
Like going through basic training together. You mentioned good to great. I happen to have the next one here. Now, we didn't plan this. We didn't talk about this beforehand. I just happen to have the next book right here, and it's not a plug either. I don't,
I'll have to read that.
Yeah, no, it's phenomenal stuff.
But I think going off of what Jeff had said, it's amazing the relationships that get built. It's like going to college, right? I mean, they go to this academy and they spend 8-9 sessions together and full days, and it's almost like they become college graduates together, and they still hang out. A funny story that came out of that was a couple graduates that came out created what they call them. We haven't formalized this, and it's not public, so I guess it'll be public now. Because we haven't got.
You can edit it out if you want.
No, it's a good one.
We haven't got a good name for it, but it doesn't matter. So a couple of the graduates created a program, we call it PDP right now, and really what they're doing is developing supervisors and dispatchers direct line with the drivers. Right now, it's mostly geared towards safety, but they're doing mini sessions with the supervisors and the and frontline staff, customer service, all of that on hours of service and safe driving and the importance of drug and alcohol testing, and they built their own program around it, and again, I'm not taking any credit because they created it, they made it, they ran with it, they're the ones doing the training, and it's just how that culture kind of morphs from you started something and now it just kind of they're just doing it on their own, and it's quite amazing to see.
And the real ironic part of that is one of our SMART goals for this year that Steve and I had on our list of things to do was to develop a program, safety for the non-safety professional. And here, those 2 people came up with that on their own, built it, kind of came to Steve and to the operations leaders and said, we want to try this. And now it's being done. It's going to be done across the entire organization. It's amazing.
It sounds like you guys are really good at getting out of the way.
We try.
Like,
That's
seriously,
what it
right?
takes. That's what it takes.
Huh. Yeah, if there's momentum, whether it's drivers starting to become a mentor in that room, or it's what these students want to do, you're like, if you see the green shoots going, make sure they got enough fertilizer, enough sunlight, enough water, and then just
Let it go.
let it go.
Let it grow.
Yeah,
Manage, of course, because you don't want it to go off the rails. But you know,
yeah,
hey, it's their creativity. If you try to lock down the creativity, then you're not gonna win. I mean,
right, right.
I'd love
And
to
I
sit
think
here and pretend I've got all the answers. I don't.
I think one of the other real keys to the program of the call is it's an external resource that teaches the content. And the content was all developed. It's Challenger branded. It's developed to our culture, to how we do things, to our processes and procedures, to our mission, vision, and values. It's developed totally for us. But the gentleman that runs the program has kind of been around us now for 11 years, and actually a bit more because he helped with some other projects. And he's become enough of an insider that he has his own badge. He can come in and out of our building when he pleases. But he's enough of an outsider that people feel comfortable talking to him about things they maybe didn't want to talk to us about. And he can help them understand the big picture and maybe get, I don't want to talk to Steve or Jeff about that, but this is kind of, I don't understand why they're doing this. And his name happens to be Steve. Steve can kind of walk them through that. Steve can then also come to us and I when I I always do the opening session of it to, welcome everybody to the call and the importance of it. I always say, this is a safe place for you. You can talk about whatever you want to talk about here. Steve will never tell me who talked about what. He will come to me and say, Jeff, we got a bit of a situation in this area that I think you need to go look at. Here's some things you might want to investigate, but he won't tell us who said it. And that's very important because it lets them build trust within Steve and within their own group. And it again, that wasn't really part of the plan, that Steve was going to become half inside, half outside, but it's really worked.
Yeah. The whenever I ask folks about leadership development, we talk about how meaningful it is for the people who are being developed. But the other part of that is, if you've ever worked for a bad boss, you know how miserable it could otherwise be. The greatest job in the world, but if your boss stinks, right, it ruins everything. And so the value in leadership development for the people who are working under them is immeasurable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're pretty proud of it. It's been a success for sure.
Yeah. All right. Third section. Environmental impact. You guys, it seems like you do a fair bit of thinking about that. Would you say that's true?
We do. I mean, I think our industry is not well liked on the environmental side of things. We are a big consumer of fossil fuels and rubber from fossil fuels and all those kinds of things. I mean, so yeah, I mean, we do what we can. I wouldn't call us on the extreme leading edge of things. Like we are not the first to go get hydrogen powered trucks or electric trucks by any means. Sorry, I'll reword that. We're not on the bleeding edge. We try to be on the leading edge.
Right.
And I think our industry has a lot of work to do in that area still. Our building is LEED certified, so it meets environmental criteria. The geothermal heating, all those kinds of things, and those things have changed over time for sure.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, we do focus on it. I mean, obviously, if we can use less fuel, we're going to save more money as well. Fuel's a big cost in the transportation industry, but it's more than that. We do have to look after our environment. We do all have a part in that, so we try. It's difficult.
Yeah, I mean, outside of obviously fully electric trucks, which we haven't, explored, or well, not that we haven't explored it, we haven't jumped in on it yet. But from our truck tech perspective, like our trucks have pretty much anything and everything available from a environmental side of things, and from green wings to we even have what we call fly swatter mud flaps, because the air rides through them and it saves fuel economy and reduces the amount of CO2. And all our trucks are obviously new engines and all of that kind of stuff. And so really, I mean, we're to Jeff's point is, we have a lot of technology. We're just not moving into that next space, quite yet.
But yeah, I mean, the reason I brought it up is because when I looked at that file of all the things that you had been thinking about, whether that's mud flaps or changing the lights over to LEDs or all these things, like the list went on and on and on and on. Leading edge, you don't have to be bleeding edge, because at the bleeding edge there are a whole bunch of practical issues that are going to slow down everything else, right?
Yeah.
So
Well,
electric
there's a
trucks,
lot of challenges with the, some of that green technology when it comes to electric and hydrogen, and that need to be solved before, our industry, anyways. When I say our industry, because we're primarily long haul trucking, before we can jump into that space, there's a lot of problems that need to be solved. Maybe a last mile company might be able to jump into, electric a little bit faster because their trucks are home every day, those kinds of things. There's a lot of, infrastructure that needs to be developed before it's going to be practical for us.
right? And in the meantime, you guys are doing all this other stuff too.
Well, we're trying our best, right
Yeah.
down to even, and I don't know, I think we might have put it in there. Even our Isaac, device has
Yep.
a driver behavior, tool to it, which is visual lighting system in the truck that tells them if they're driving the truck. I'll call it eco-friendly. We all have new vehicles that tells us if we're driving properly or not. It's the same kind of concept, and really it's driving that fuel effective type of driving. And then we built an entire incentive around it so that we're sharing the wallet what go to to say when it comes to our incentives. So we're going to save some money on fuel, we're going to give you back money in an incentive. So
I like that term. I like that term. Sharing the wallet. All right. The other skill I saw was your community outreach. There's a lot of involvement in charitable organizations, things like that. Was that another one of these sort of organically grown things, or was this something that from the top there was something very specific you want to work on?
Well, I'll say it was kind of both. I mean, Challenger as a company under our previous ownership, like we're part of a big group now, part of the Fast Freight group is very engaged in outreach, but within the community, if you go back to the original founders of the company, Dan Einwichter, who's still involved in the company. Dan grew up in this community and came in the Cambridge area. He believed in the community and was always a big part of it. And so the company is involved in parts of it, but there's a charity committee that's run by volunteers within the company, and they work hard at it. I mean, that last event they did with the Cambridge Food Bank was incredible. They got asked for donations of canned food to build. It was called Construction, and it was at the local mall, and people built things out of canned food related to their industry. And our group built a truck. And they matched all the colors to match our colors, and lined up all the labels on the cans the right way, and used pop bottles to make them look like fuel tanks, and used black cans to make the rubber wheels. And it was incredible. And I went over to see that group on a Friday afternoon after hours. They were there on their own time, and it was amazing to watch. There they all were in their Challenger sweatshirts or t-shirts, building this construction truck. It was just really neat to see, and that has continued to grow on its own for sure.
well, and I was going to say, even some of it, drivers come to us and, hey, I'm involved in the Big Brothers. Can I borrow a truck and go and move a whole bunch of Christmas trees? Sure, go ahead. I want to be part of the Special Olympics. Can we put trucks in it, and can we raise money? Yeah, sure, go ahead. And so talk about getting out of the way again. And, sometimes it's, they come to us and say, hey, this is what I want to do, and can I do it? So we've got involvement in a few organizations that are completely driver engaged, not us.
Right. Right. Amazing. Amazing. Quite possibly one of the best episodes we've ever had. I will say this
was fun.
This has been a great pleasure talking to you guys, and I want to congratulate you again. It was a great win. It was great seeing you at the event, and I'm looking forward to seeing what else you guys do in the future, because you're just always looking for that next thing, or allowing that next thing to happen.
Yeah.
So
thanks for having us, and again, we're pleased to be part of the program, and thank you so much.
Amazing. No,
Thank
I
you.
appreciate
Appreciate
it.
it.
Thanks.